Good day from Medellin, Colombia, as I continue my South America tour. More to come. I'm flying to a new destination today, and of course circling back home in the very near future because I'm going to see you at Empowered Investor Live. In fact, our guest today will be speaking at Empowered Investor Live, and that is none other than famous CPA and Rich Dad advisor Tom Wheelwright. This guy has all sorts of genius tax strategies. You know, taxes are the single largest expense any of us have in our lives, and if we can save on taxes, we can create wealth so much more quickly. So Tom Wheelwright will be with us in just a moment, but be sure you do register for Empowered Investor Live because we have a bunch of other great speakers as well. Our 2.5-day event in Irvine, California. It is going to be our best yet, our 26th event like this. And we have some other great keynote speakers. Sharon Lechter is speaking again. She has spoken at our events before, and she will be back with us this time with a keynote presentation. She's the author of so many great books. They're really good. And by the way, one of them that is a sleeper, I think, at least for me it was, a really big, pleasant surprise, was Outwitting the Devil. Make sure you read that book by Sharon Lechter. It's just so good. But of course, the Cash Flow Quadrant in the Rich Dad series and so many others are so good. She is just a wonderful lady and a great speaker and a great educator. We'll also have, for the first time, Mike Maloney. He is the expert, probably the best teacher in the world on monetary policy. And of course, we are big on inflation and using that to our benefit as real estate investors. And so Mike Maloney will be talking all about how the system works, sort of the underbelly of the financial system and monetary policy. Just incredibly important stuff. And then we've got a whole bunch of other speakers. Our teams will be there, our property managers, our local market specialists, our software providers. I'm really glad to say that this time we'll be doing a lot more on software and technology that can really help you with your real estate portfolio and make you a better investor and also make it a lot easier for you. So empoweredinvestorlive.com is that domain name to go and get your tickets today. Also, by popular request, we have children's tickets. In fact, not really children, but it goes up to age 21, special discounted tickets for your kids. You want to bring your young adults or your children. We have had some of our investor attendees in the past bring kids as young as 11 years old, and they loved the event. So it's a really fun event, but it's a super educational event. And the sooner you can expose your children to this kind of knowledge and this kind of thinking, the better off their life will be. So bring them. Special prices at empoweredinvestorlive.com. And also, I got one more big surprise. We have agreed with George Gammon to do a deal where if you buy an Empowered Investor Live ticket, you also get a free ticket for Rebel Capitalist Live, which is about a month later. So that event is a month later. It's in Orlando, Florida. I have spoken at all of the Rebel Capitalist events, and with your ticket purchase, you get one ticket for that event as well. So it's a double whammy, double knowledge, double trouble, all kinds of great speakers at both events. So make sure you get your tickets today, empoweredinvestorlive.com. And without further ado, let's get to Tom Wheelwright. And before we go, let's hear an interesting clip of the day.
How many children or people are totally unvaccinated? Is that where do you find? Is it just the parents that stepped up and said? I would think that's a very small percentage because so many of us blindly followed, the recommendations to vaccinate children.
Yeah, it's less than 1% of the public. So the Amish are a perfect example of a large group of people who are largely unvaccinated. And there's we can't find an autistic kid who was unvaccinated. It's very rare in the Amish community, very rare. You won't find kids with ADD, with autoimmune disease, with PANS, with epilepsy. You just don't find any of these chronic diseases in the Amish. And the U.S. government has been studying the Amish for decades, but there's never been a report out to the public. The reason, of course, is it would show that, if you don't follow our guidelines, you're going to end up healthier. That's why there's no report after decades of studying the Amish. There's no report because the report would be devastating to the narrative. It would show that the CDC has been harming the public for decades and saying nothing and burying all the data.
It is my pleasure to welcome a returning guest back to the show, and that is the famous rock star CPA, Tom Wheelwright. He's always got great insights. He's one of the Rich Dad authors, and great insights on taxation and the economy and really creative strategies. So there's a lot going on right now. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Jason. Always good to be with you and your listeners. There is an enormous amount going on.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of chatter. And I think that we can pick apart some of that chatter for people, because I don't think it's what you necessarily hear.
Absolutely. So, the new Trump administration, Trump 2.0, which I think is a much better Trump than Trump 1.0. I'm really impressed with some of the stuff he's doing. I don't think it'll be without a few bumps in the road, though, for sure. There's some massive changes. He's a disruptor. And one of the things he said, Tom, is he wants to eliminate the IRS. He wants to eliminate income tax and really get money from the new ERS, the External Revenue Service, rather than the Internal Revenue Service. Speak to us about this.
Well, so first of all, he's Andrew Jackson 2.0, right? So that was Andrew Jackson's philosophy. The challenge with the income tax is that if you eliminate it, it'll come back. Unless you actually eliminate the 16th Amendment, he'll eliminate it and the next president will bring it back and it'll be back. And so what we'll have is we'll just have more taxes. And so that's actually the issue with saying, hey, we're going to take the tax rate down to zero, or even like a flat tax. Reagan did a flat tax, and where are we now? Right. So I'm a huge fan of eliminating the 16th Amendment, but you got to do it by the voters have to approve that. Right. So you got to get Congress and the voters on board. You can't do it without it.
Right. To really eliminate it permanently, it would require a constitutional convention.
That's what I'm saying. You'd have to eliminate the 16th Amendment.
And that is major. I mean, that is a high bar, to change that.
Yep.
So I agree with you. So Tom, how do the Trump plans, or your speculation about the Trump plans, affect real estate investors?
Well, from a positive standpoint, I think we're going to get bonus depreciation back, right? I think that's a big positive. That certainly had a big impact on the real estate industry in 2017 and till now, right? And I think it's going to be retroactive to the beginning of the year.
So bonus depreciation meaning what? When you do cost segregation?
Right. When you do a cost segregation, meaning that instead of having to take the cabinetry and the carpeting, all that kind of stuff, instead of having to depreciate that over 5 or 7 years, you get to take it in the year you purchase it. Okay. So I think at least
or at least in the year you do the cost seg study.
Well, it's
because you could have purchased it 3 years ago and you can do the
you do not get bonus depreciation if you do the cost seg study 3 years later. Okay. That's not how it works. Okay. You don't necessarily get bonus depreciation. It depends on how they word it, but right now that's not the case. Okay.
But you can start the clock on depreciating those other things when you do the study, right?
Right. So let's say, for example, you bought it 3 years ago and you should have depreciated 60% over the regular, because it was 5-year property, right? Then you get to catch up the 60%, but you don't get 100%. Whereas if you do it in the year you buy it, you get 100%. So it is better. It's better to do it the year you buy it. Okay. That's always
well, you're saying because it's already been depreciated. That's why.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that bonus depreciation.
I mean, partially depreciated.
Right. That's why you're catching up what you should have taken had you done regular depreciation, but you do not get to catch up to 100%.
Okay.
Unless it was, longer than the life of the asset ago.
Yeah.
So whereas like if contents of the house are $100,000 and I do a cost segregation the year I buy it, I'm going to get a $100,000 deduction under full bonus depreciation. Okay. But if I do that cost segregation 3 years later, I'm probably going to catch up and I'm going to probably get 60%. Yeah. Right. I'm not going to get 100%. And it's not just because it's already been depreciated. It's because I'm subject to the normal rules, not the bonus rules. The bonus rules apply when you buy the property. So I think we're going to get it at least for the contents at things under 10 years. Whether we'll get bonus depreciation for leasehold improvements and other land improvements, things like that, I don't know. That's a negotiating point for Congress to say, well, how much money is it?
Okay.
But I think we're going to get that.
The holy grail of tax write-offs. I love depreciation, so that might be a benefit of the new Trump administration.
For sure.
What else for real estate investors?
It'll be interesting to see what happens with interest.
Yeah.
If they decide that they need a big pay-for, the biggest pay-for is to eliminate the home mortgage interest deduction. Mm-hmm. That's one of the big pay-fors.
And when you say pay-for, you mean revenue to the government.
It's the revenue to pay for the tax decreases, like
in other words, we would lose a benefit.
Right. I think there's a potential for that because so many people rent now. And frankly, the interest deduction is baked into the price of the homes for the most part, that I think taking away is not a killer.
And so this applies to owner-occupied homeowners,
right.
not
owner-occupied,
investors.
Not investors.
Yeah.
Investors are going to get their interest deduction regardless, right? But it does have an impact on investors because it affects pricing.
Well, yeah, because in other words, if that deduction goes away, pricing could soften. That would put downward pressure on real estate prices for homes that people buy, to owner occupy. But
well, it puts
that has
it's
an
downward pressure
on
all single family homes, right?
Got it. But the important thing we need to dissect there is that typically rental properties are in a different price range than owner occupied properties, by and large, right? And so that's why it's not like a one-for-one, but your point is well taken, yeah.
So I think that's one thing that I would pay attention to. The state and local tax deduction actually goes the other way, right? Because property taxes, where you might be limited, like in a state like Texas, might be fully deductible for the homeowner, again. So that has the opposite effect as eliminating the interest deduction.
So in other words, that is upward pressure on prices.
That's upward pressure.
We got one thing that's a downward pressure, the other thing that's an upward pressure, so maybe it evens out.
Yep, absolutely. I think otherwise, I don't think the rates are going to change at all, except for manufacturing and for like tips workers.
Tax rates.
I don't see a lot, actually. I actually think the deportations might have a bigger impact on the real estate market than anything, right? Just because all of a sudden you have 5 million fewer renters.
Well, so let's talk about that for a minute. So that's really a two-sided equation like everything, right? It means you instantly take that renter of like a low-end cheap apartment out because they're illegal, so they're not making much money and they've got a really cheap apartment that they're renting, right? So then you've got a vacancy as a landlord of these very low-income type apartments, okay? But by the same token, they also took a job away from an American, so now an American can do that job and they will get paid at higher wages. That's inflationary, right? It's less cost to the government overall, so there's a lot of cross currents in that, but the instant feel is that, hey, I got a vacancy, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure that they took a job away because the job market's still pretty tight, right?
Hey, look, a lot of them are doing a construction job.
Right.
And so if you lose those, the average construction worker now is like 50 years old, Tom. It's insane. Mm-hmm. So if you lose these immigrants doing construction work, and a lot of them do that, okay, the cost of building a home is going to go way up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nothing else can help.
For sure. I mean, I had my roof replaced. Yeah. And there wasn't one of them that spoke English.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
Okay.
And you probably got a great deal. That roof's going to be a lot more.
They did a great job.
They're
great craftsmen, great workers. They did a great job. I have no complaints about what they did. Yeah. I'm going, okay, cost of roofs going to go up because if they're not there.
Oh, yeah. No, you're going to pay way more money for a bunch of white American people speaking English to do your roof next time around. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I actually think that probably has a bigger impact on real estate than maybe bigger.
So that impact is upward pressure on prices.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, interesting.
So
okay.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of other stuff. I mean, do you? I don't hear a lot of changes on real estate taxes. I think the solar may go away, so that's a real estate issue, really. Right. So I think the solar credits may completely go away. Yeah. And of course, that means that if you're putting solar on your apartment building, or you're becoming your own utility, basically private utility there, and you're doing that, or you're putting it on your rental homes, whatever. I think that is a severe risk.
Yeah,
of going
I think
away.
you're right. And you have long been a proponent of doing the solar deals
Oh,
because it's been a great tax benefit, right?
it's a great tax benefit, and if you live in the right place, I mean, depending on where it's depending on where the real
Oh,
estate
you're
is.
in Arizona, so
I'm in Arizona,
yeah,
so
works there.
so it's a really good deal in Arizona,
Yeah.
and there are other western states, in particular Utah, California, that have a lot of sunshine. And if you got a lot of sunshine, it makes a lot of sense to use solar because, I mean, I will tell you, my utility bills are about a third after putting the solar on as they were before the solar in the summer. So it actually can have a big impact. And I actually am a big fan of solar energy.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice clean energy, and we got it anyway. Why not use it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, nothing puts more energy on the earth than the sun. It's an amazing power source. We kind of got into this a little bit deeply here, but I want to back up and just ask you a different question.
Sure.
What do you think really the new Trump administration, combined with Congress that's on his side for at least 2 years, right? What do you think is going to happen? Like, what should our listeners and viewers be prepared for? What should they plan for? I don't think there's too much risk of getting audited anymore with his rhetoric, at least.
That's an interesting one. I actually would hope from an audit standpoint that they don't take the money away from technology. The IRS is woefully behind in technology, needs good technology. I don't think they need more auditors. I think they need better technology.
Yeah.
And with the technology, they could actually do automated audits, which is the way it should be. I mean, people should pay their accurate amount of tax, right? Whatever's accurate for them. I don't think anybody's disagreeing that we should not have cheaters. Right. There's no need to cheat, as we've talked before,
Yep.
Jason, but there's no need to cheat. But 15% of the public regularly cheats. I mean, that's the statistics, right? And so that's a pretty big number.
And what's interesting about that, by the way, is regardless of whatever the tax scheme is at the time, the government collects about the same percentage of GDP no matter what. It's about 19%. It could be the tax rate could be high, it could be low, it could be deductions.
Well,
People are only going to pay the government 19%. That's the end of it.
Steve Besson, our new Treasury Secretary, he said, we don't really have a revenue problem. We have an expenditure problem. And he's spot on on that. It's an expenditure problem. It's not a revenue problem. I think getting a physical audit just went down substantially, for sure. Getting a technology audit is going to go up. Mm-hmm. So I think getting the notice in the mail is going to go up for sure.
But they're not going to come out and do a field audit, probably.
They're not going to do as many field audits. Probably with the large businesses, they'll continue to do that. And they might even do it with some of the wealthy taxpayers. Who knows? The problem is that just FYI, Jason, most of the cheating is not done by the rich. Most of the cheating is done by the middle class. So even percentage-wise, it's higher in the middle class. It's the laundry service. It's the contractor. These are the people that are saying, I'll give you a $10 discount if you pay me cash. These are the people cheating on the taxes. That's the most common cheat. And that's very clear in the data. But everybody who's ever called the IRS knows it's just terrible. They say they answer the phone in 15 minutes. I think what they're quantifying is that there'll actually be an artificial message come on within 15 minutes. There's no person in 15 minutes. I've never had that experience. It's hours, right? And so we do need people in customer service. We do need money in technology. I don't think we need more auditors. So that's one thing. But I think from the 2017 Act is basically going to be extended, because if it were not, people would see that as a tax increase. Mm-hmm. So there's no way Trump wants to come in, or Congress, the Republican Congress wants to give people a perceived tax increase. So I think the 2017 Act is going to be extended. Now, the question is, what about bonus depreciation? Okay, that's a big one. What about research and development expense? What about the qualified business income deduction? What about the state and local tax deduction? So there are some things that could change. So first of all, state and local tax deduction is going to go up. There's too much clout by the New York Republicans in Congress. They have too much clout. So because of that, they will raise that probably from 10,000 to 20,000. We're probably going to get bonus depreciation. I think, Jason, we're going to get 100% bonus depreciation back to the beginning of 2025. What I don't know is what will be included in bonus depreciation. Mm-hmm. I think it'll probably include real estate, but I'm not sure it'll include leasehold improvements, which is that 15-year property it's been including. So that might go away. So I think there are going to be some changes, and it may be temporary. It may be a 4 or 5 year extension of bonus depreciation. And then same with the research and development expensing. I think we're going to get that retroactive at least to 25 and maybe to 2022, because that's a big one. That was a huge mistake in the 2017 Act. That should never have been in there. It was a terrible idea in the first place. And the only reason they put it in was because they were playing smoke and mirrors games with the numbers, and they thought it would be reversed before it actually went into play, right? That's the why they did it. Well, it went into play, didn't get reversed, and here we are with people paying, I know people paying 80% tax rate because they've got so much research and development expense that they have to capitalize. So that's a big one. I think the qualified business income deduction, that's the 20% small business deduction. I think it's good. I think we're going to keep that. So I think that's safe. I was concerned, but there's a lot of pressure to keep that in place. The other thing that we're going to get is we're going to get a reduction in the tax rate for manufacturers.
That'll be the incentive to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.
It will be, and it probably won't be in a tax rate. It will probably be in what we used to have, which was called the DPAD, the Domestic Production Activities Deduction, and it basically effectively it's an effective tax rate reduction. It's a deduction, but it ends up functioning like a tax rate reduction just for manufacturing. So it won't affect the rest of corporations. That would be, I don't think there's anybody who's, there's not enough willingness to do that. The 21% rate's here to stay, I think, for the regular corporation. And then I think, unfortunately, tips are going to be exempt. So
Treasury inflation protected.
Tips are going to be exempt.
Tips. You mean tips on services? Yeah, right.
Tips on services. It's a terrible idea. It's a horrible idea that
tell us about that. So Trump campaighed on that. I mean,
he did. It was a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea when it was suggested in the first place.
Why is it a terrible idea?
Because you're targeting a specific group of people and giving them some tax benefit. Why are you targeting a specific group of
people? I think the narrative is that these are lower income people and it would help them out.
But what about the other lower income people that don't get tips? I mean, why? Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of ways you can cheat on that. Like I was going to just tell my renters to lower the rent and pay me tips for the rest.
Well, I think they already have a definition in there that just applies. It's just going to apply to restaurant workers and basically hotel workers. That's who it's going to apply to.
Okay.
They've already got definitions there. It's going to apply. That they can limit the cheating, but it's probably going to happen. I mean, it'll probably be an income level that it's set at. You can't, if you make over such and such, it's not deductible. It probably won't apply to their Social Security taxes. It'll probably only apply to their income taxes. So they'll still have to report them.
Yeah.
Just won't be subject to income tax.
Okay. So I've got an exciting announcement for everybody. Tom Wheelwright is a very dynamic speaker on a live stage. He's got a couple of flip charts and he's just moving around, and people learn so much from you, Tom, when you're on stage. You've spoken at several of our events before, and you are going to be speaking at Empowered Investor Live. That's April in Irvine, California. We've got a beautiful resort hotel, freshly remodeled, and this is going to be a great time. It's going to be great to have you there, Tom. And any comments about the event or anything about any things you wanted to say that I didn't ask you today?
Yeah, first of all, it'll be great to be at your event. And by April, we'll actually know a little more about tariffs. We'll know a little bit more about the immigration. We'll know a little bit more about taxes. I actually think the most important thing you can do this year is to stay up to date on what's going on, because it's absolutely going to have an impact on every single person who lives in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom, your insights are just so valuable. So I can't wait to see you live in April at Empowered Investor Live. Go to empoweredinvestorlive.com to register for that. And Tom, go ahead and give out your website as well.
Go to tfwadvisors.us, and that is our website, our tax-free wealth advisors.
Good stuff. Tom Wheelwright, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jason.